I have a question. I'm Larissa Wall over here at KVOA. I'm somewhat of a new MMJ person. How do you know when you have all the right B-roll that you need? I struggle with, leaving the scene and then going, shoot, I should have gotten more video on X, Y, or Z.
One of the things that I kind of do when every single day is while I'm shooting the story, I'm thinking about how I'm going to write it in my head. In fact, a lot of the times, whenever I get in the car to come back, I already have, a fair amount of the story sketched out in my head. I probably have the opening lines written. I probably have the closing lines written, and I know what I'm going to do in the middle of the story. So I have when you're kind of thinking about both process, both the shooting and the writing process at the same time, I think it works great. I'm so much happier doing it this way than the two-person crew, because, like I said, I know where the story's going. I know what I need for pictures. So I think the bottom line is, while you're shooting the story, you need to be thinking about how you're going to structure it. You need to be thinking about how you're going to write it. I don't overshoot a ton. I overshoot a little bit, in case I would get back and something would develop in the story, and I need to change something in a modest way. But like I said, when I get in the car, and that's when coming back, that's when I really start refining my writing. It doesn't take me a great deal of time to write, because, like I said, I've already thought it through in my head. So when I actually sit down to put hands to keyboard, it goes pretty quickly for me. And it also goes quickly because, like I said, I kind of let the sound from my story subjects direct the story, and all I do is kind of link their sound. So writing for me, happens pretty quickly. Did that come close to answering your question?
Thank you. Very helpful. I have a question too. Oh, sorry. I have a question too. This is Naomi from KVOA also. What do you do for either two shots or when...
You got to speak up just a touch. I can't hear you.
Oh, sorry.
What
do you do for either two shots or when you need to get the person doing something and they're really not doing anything when you need them for an interview? Because I struggle with that a lot.
Typically what I do, and obviously everything's subject to change, but typically the first thing that I do after I sit down with the person without the camera, get to know them a little bit, is I'll shoot the interview. And that I will tell you, it's the one thing that I don't get real fancy with. I don't get crazy creative in terms of shooting interviews. You'll typically see my interviews will be head and shoulder, and and then perhaps close on the face. And the reason for that is simple. Sometimes you do have to give a little bit in a situation to get. I don't like to look through the camera the whole time, because I want my story subject that I've built a connection with to forget about the camera and just talk to me, talk to the person that hopefully they now trust a little bit. So I typically will flip my viewfinder open so that I can glance over every now and then, make sure they're still there. But I don't get crazy creative with shooting interviews, and that's because I think what they say is maybe more important than whether it's the most creatively shot interview on the planet. But in doing that, in getting that sound, it gives me that foundation that I talk about, in that I have to have the great sound bites from people to tell a great story. And it also gives them a chance to kind of get used to the camera, so that now once I get my foundation interview, all the sound that I know I need, then I just kind of tell them, whatever it is they do, whether they're working on computers, for the state food stamp program, or whether they're, I don't know what, a lumberjack, then it's like, Joe, at this point, all I need you just do what you do, and I'm just going to take pictures. And I kind of back away from a little bit, and I've got the wireless on them, and I get all the video that I need of them doing what they're doing to set them up in the story, to tell people, who they are and what they do. Once I have all of that, then what I might do is, while they're doing what they're doing, I might just toss a question at them and say, so what is that you're doing right now? And let them just off the cuff turn to the camera and say something, because that'll give you that kind of, very casual, short soundbite that you can slide into the story. Let me tell you one of the great secrets. We're always taught not to ask yes/no questions, just an interview technique here. and I didn't invent this myself. I learned this from a great investigative reporter that I used to work with here, Paula Woodward. And she didn't point it out to me, but I noticed her always doing this, and it always worked. And I found it to be an absolute slam dunk for getting a great soundbite. Like I said, and it violates the asking yes/no questions. If you ask somebody, you really love what you do, don't you? And they go, yeah. And then just say, tell me about that. It's genius. What it does is it defines what you want to hear. You're not putting words in their mouth, because they always have the opportunity to say, no, I don't really like this. And then you would say, well, tell me about that. Tell me why you don't like it. But it gets people to, you're saying, tell me about your feelings. This really makes you mad, doesn't it? Yeah. Tell me about that. And I'm telling you, I've never gotten a bad soundbite out of it. And I've gotten a whole lot of home run sound bites out of it. So give that a try sometime. Just ask them a yes/no question about their feelings or about their opinions, and then just follow it up with, tell me about that. It's a slam dunk, I guarantee it.
Hey, this is Keen from KVOA in Tucson also. I wanted to revisit the question about...
That's not fair. You're down there where it's warm and it's snowing here. That's not fair.
Hey, it's freezing. It was like 40
Oh, yeah, I'm sure it's all the way down to 50.
That's 40 degrees less than we're used to it. I wanted to revisit this question about getting the human element, because every one of us really understands that, and that's what every one of us wants to get, and we always look for that. But some days, for whatever reason, it just doesn't happen. You can't get that person that wants to talk about it because the subject matter is too emotional for them, or a time of day, nobody's home because everybody else is out, at work, and you just can't find the person. So we're often forced, if you will, to go to the parking lot at Target and get MOS from a person who has no vested interest in the subject matter whatsoever, and get some kind of emotional reaction out of them. Yeah. Do you find that an acceptable practice to get the human element side of the story, or not an acceptable way to force the human side of the story?
Well, every day we deal with the realities of the clock, and if it's a situation where, it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon and you need something for 5 and you can't find somebody, you deal with the realities. I will tell you, though, that I would still prefer, if I can't get the person that this story subject, is affected by, I would look for someone who understands it. If it's a story, just pull something out of the air. If it's somebody who, we've had a couple of cases here where people have been killed by mountain lions. Yeah, it's very difficult probably to get the direct family members to maybe talk about what that's like. But you know what? There's other people that have had that happen. And I would be on the horn, and I would be trying to run down the person who lost their son to a mountain lion attack, 3 years ago. Or another example, we had a little girl go missing, and they just huge manhunt, couldn't find her. Well, obviously the families, with victims, advocates, couldn't get them. But you know what? There was a similar case in Denver 15 years ago, and the guy now has a search dog program, and he knows what it's like to not know where your daughter is. I'd go for him. That's far better than somebody who's completely disconnected. But you know what? If like I said, you deal with the realities every day, and if there's simply no time to get it, you get what you can get.